Hello folks, hope you're all having a wonderful day out there in YouTube land and everyone's having a good one. I'm here with my faithful mug of tea with the right team on it as well, the right one, man of culture. And today I had a quite stressful day, both at work and outside of work. So inside of work we had a lot of people handing in their essays late, and when that happens, usually I'm the one who gets it in the neck because, well, it's my responsibility to get it in. We did in the end. We managed to harangue the kids who had not handed in their essays, and we got it all sorted out, which is great. But it was still very stressful at the time. And then I got home and recorded and uploaded, and my videos wouldn't process, which is panic-inducing for any YouTuber out there. You collectively winced when I said that. I managed to fix it by switching up the format from VKM to something else, to MP3, and it worked. But all my other videos were in that format. So anyway, doesn't matter. Technical stuff. It was very, very stressful. And usually, when I'm stressed out, I kind of get really irritable and really annoyed, and I'm not great to be around. Like, I don't have a go at anybody, but I'm just miserable, you know, and it just sucks. And if something really gets on top of me, like if something doesn't work, I'm like, oh, and I just get really annoyed with it. But today, I just sat back and said, you know what, this is happening and it sucks, and my heart's going, and I'm really stressed. But what good is it doing me? What can I do? You know what I mean? Like, let's just work through what I know and how I can fix it. And eventually, we fixed it, and it was great. And for all I know, we may have an issue with uploading this video, but we'll fix that too, and things will get better. And they did. And that's the first time in a long time where I've tried that. I'm not a good person when it comes to handling setbacks. That's just not something that I do very well. And in the cause of being transparent on a channel that is about mental health, I thought it'd be good for me to say that to people. Look, it doesn't take much for me to think, oh my god, when is the piano going to fall on my head? You know, the imposter syndrome, the lack of self-worth, they all come in, you know, and my confidence is low enough in myself that I'm surprised when things work out. This is a point. We're going to get to 40k in a minute, all right? This is a point. But like a few weeks ago, we had my grandpa's funeral, as you all know. And I had to give a speech. And I've not really spoken about it on the channel. But I was really, really, really nervous. Because, again, my confidence in myself isn't very high. And a lot of people will hear that and think, oh god, you know, another one of these dudes. But no, seriously, like, I was giving that speech, and I read it and read it and read it, and I just wasn't sure what I was going to do, and, you know, I wasn't sure the speech was good enough, or that I'd screw it up somehow, and that's just how I am. And when I was sitting in the church, and my sister was sitting next to me, and she's heavily pregnant right now, and it was getting to her a bit much. And she said to my mum and my uncle, who were sitting in the front row, because we were in the second row, she said, look, I can't do this. Like, I can't do my speech. And at that point, her doing the speech is what made me think, oh, I'll be fine. Look, she's heavily pregnant. She's doing the speech. I'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? I was still trying to hold it together, because there was a lot of people there. There were hundreds of people there. And it's one thing giving a lecture to people who are paying to be there. It's another thing to give a speech to people who last saw you were like, yay, hi. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It was really, really odd. So anyway, when she said she couldn't do it, that was kind of like a safety blanket had been pulled off. And I was like, oh God, what do I do now? And I was like, well, I've got no choice. I can't let my mum down now, because I'm the only one giving a speech out of the two kids, the two grandkids. You know, I'm the only one giving a speech. So my mum and my uncle went up there, and they did really well. But they did it, again, YouTube really, really helped me in this, as well as teaching. But I say YouTube because this is thousands of people I'm talking to right now. Usually I'm talking to like 20, 30 university students, or maybe even a one-on-one session, you know. So it's far more nerve-wracking to do a video than it is to stand in front of a class. Like, far more. Or even live streaming. It's far more nerve-wracking. So, at least to me. So, my mum and my uncle went up there, and they were, the layman's, right? They don't do this. They don't do the speaking to crowds thing, and it came across that way. It was very, they spoke very quickly. They mumbled quite a lot, and this is not a thing on them. My heart was going out to them because it must have been so difficult, and I was like, dude, that's such a brave thing to do, because they didn't have to, right? They didn't have to do that. They could have got the celebrant to do it or whatever, but they did it. And then they sat down, and I looked around, and he said, right now, my name's Dean. They said, Dean, the grandson, is going to say a few words, and I did. I got up, and the first thing I said when I got to the mic stand, I said, well, I didn't think I'd be the main event today, but here we are. And everybody laughed, right? And that just set me up, and I realised from now on in I'd be okay. And then the performative nature of being a YouTuber came out, right? And I was telling jokes, and I was adding one-liners to my I was reading my script, I was reading my speech, and I was adding like little zingers and one-liners here and there that were going down really well. And my cadence was very clear. I reached the back of the room, everybody heard me, and the amount of people afterwards who came up to me and said, listen, you were the only one I could hear, and it was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed your speech. And these people I didn't know, I was like, geez, thank you, And it just made me think that looking down at my granddad's casket, it made me think about positivity in yourself and who you are as a person, and how maybe I can do more than I think I can. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe I can. Maybe I can do more than what I thought in myself. And doing that speech really gave me that impetus, that feeling. And then, that night, I was speaking to a friend of mine, a fellow 40k fan. And we were talking about men in 40k. And when I say men, I don't mean fans. That too, I guess. But we were talking about characters. Characters in 40k who inspire you as a man to get up and keep going, or to be a better person. And that got me thinking, I really wanted to do a video where I don't write a script, so it's not fake, it's not controlled, and I sit and I talk about how 40k has taught me and trained me to be a better man than I would have been without it. The first thing I want to talk about, and I will talk about characters here, because I do have a few characters that I think are better at being male role models than others, right? But the first thing I want to talk about is the coach, right? A lot of people that I know who got into 40k, they realized they were teachers, they realized they were good at what they were doing by teaching people how to play 40k, because it's not easy. It's not easy. And you will know what I mean. You come across a lot of people who think they can teach 40k. So they try. And they either drive the person away, or they give them a semi-bad experience in their first game playing 40k. And that's no fault of their own. They're just not teachers. And that's fine. You know what I mean? But I've seen this so many times. Especially in gaming clubs, where somebody takes somebody through their first game and they're doing it with the absolute best of intentions. But then I've seen other people who, through sheer practice, are able to take somebody through a game of 40k and have them gripped from start to finish, right? They're selfless in their time. They're selfless in their wherewithal. And there is one form of in-law positive masculine presence that I want to talk about, and it's Perturabo. Didn't see that coming, did you? Huh? Didn't see that coming. Thought I was going to say Gilliman, didn't you? No. Yeah, I'll get to him later on. No, Perturabo is one of the two or three that I want to talk about. So now, a lot of you will be thinking, well, Perturabo, are you sure, North? Like, what's going on there? Well, Perturabo doesn't start off, I grant you, as somebody who you should really admire as a man. He's petulant. He can't really take criticism. he is somebody who is woefully arrogant and very insecure. He has a massive victim complex, and when he's younger, as an example, that he is in a competition with his brother, his adopted brother, his human brother at the time, and they are going to build something cool that the nobles of Olympia will vote on which is the best one. And of course, Perturabo makes his very quickly and very well because he's a Primarch, and his brother makes one very slowly but puts his heart and soul into it, and that's the one the nobles choose. Perturabo throws a hissy fit and destroys both. But he makes sure to leave enough of his there that you can still see it was a good piece of work. Yeah, that's toxic. Like, that is... And a lot of men will recognize themselves in that example. I do. I can. Right? I'm like that, dude. Like, I get competitive. And, you know, there are some times when there will be... a guy will just grind my gears, and I let it consume me. You know, I obsess over it, and I think everyone's judging me, and if they're not judging me, I'm judging myself. You know, I'm there with Perturabo. I know what he's going through when he does something that stupid, right? And he ends up doing far worse things, like annihilating his own home world and unaliving his own sister, and you know, it's 40k, it's 30k. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying. But let's see, where does Perturabo go from here? Why did I bring him up in teaching people how to do things? Later on, after Perturabo becomes a demon Primarch, he grows up. He does the Primarch thing in reverse. He starts as this unlikable, really bitter person, you know? And he becomes quite a likable, affable, calm-ish person. The example I want to use is I forget the book, I apologise, but it's War Master Honshu. And Honshu is a half-breed, for those of you who don't know. He's part Iron Warriors and part someone else. I think it might be Imperial Fists. Anyway. He comes to Madrigard, which is the home world of the Iron Warriors, and he's just led a campaign that didn't go very well. He achieved his aims, but he also lost a lot of men and had to retreat from the Imperial Fists in the end. Oh no, the Ultramarines, sorry, in the end, as you do in Ultramar. And he comes to Madrigard to speak to the Primarch, you know, and earlier on, in the Horus Heresy, not only has Perturabo, you know, done really nasty things to other people, but when he got bad news from his own subordinates, he would kill them. He would just brain them, right? He just absolutely annihilate them, right? Annihilated one so badly that they had to put him in a dreadnought, and he thought, well, that's honourable. Well, it's not really, is it? You know, your underling just brought you some bad news. That's easily recoverable, and your response was to hit him across the room till he shatters every single bone in his body. Not the best response, right? And that was a supplicant being nice to him, giving him bad news, but being nice, being very, my lord, Perturabo, right? Honshu isn't like that. Honshu looks at Perturabo and goes, not impressed. You don't impress me, mate. You know, that kind of an attitude. Doesn't say that to him because it's me talking right now. But he says, yeah, you know, I like to see a legend for myself, so I'll judge for myself. And Perturabo, I'm thinking, okay, he's dead. Honshu's dead. Like, there's no way Perturabo's going to put up with that. Perturabo, who is now way more powerful than he used to be, goes, yeah, all right, cool. You know, cool. Right, we're going to play a game of Warhammer. Which Honshu's like, what? Yeah, we're going to play a game of Warhammer. Sit down. Come on. And they sit down, he says, I'm going to figure you out as a person through this game of Warhammer. And if you don't show any sort of wherewithal for tactics, or if you don't please me, then I'll kill you. Right? It's kind of hinted that quite heavily that Perturabo's not going to do that either way. He's just trying to get under his skin, right? So they play this game of Warhammer. And Perturabo wins nearly every game, right? but they start getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And Perturabo starts to teach Honshu how to act tactically, how to take his emotions out of the fight. Because that's his big weakness, Honshu's big weakness. And Honshu says to Perturabo, well, that's rich coming from you. Like, you did that all the time in the heresy. And you know what Perturabo does? He goes, yeah, I did. And it didn't work out very well for me. So, maybe you shouldn't either. And Honshu goes, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. Right? Now, Perturabo is teaching Honshu how to be a better man through Warhammer. The crescendo of this arc, when it happens, is that he tells Honshu, you need to think outside the box, you need to do all these different things. And Honshu in the end, defeats Perturabo in one of these games, the last one. Do you know what Perturabo does? Do you think he stands up and turns the table over and curses him or breaks every bone in his body? No. He's happy. He's happy. He says, there you go. I knew you had it in you. There you go. You took my advice. You played well. That was a masterful feint, and you won the game. Good game. And Honshu learned everything. He learned everything. He was like, oh yeah, no, actually, I should think outside the box, and I should be less caring about what's going on around me and just focus on what I can do. And that was the whole point. Perturabo said, the reason why you're losing is because you're fighting like how you think I want to see you fight. Right? You're fighting like how you think I want to see you fight. Like the rest of the Iron Warriors. Right? That's why you're losing. Because I know every doctrine. I know every Iron Warrior doctrine out there. Fight like you. Fight like you. And as soon as Honshu does that, he wins. Now, it's also kind of hinted, and this is so interesting, it's also kind of hinted that Perturabo, through that game, it's very hinted that Perturabo through that game, that he could have won, but he chose not to, because it was a teachable moment. And in that's when I was solidified in Perturabo being my absolute favourite Primarch. Because I used to frame 40k in wins and losses, right? Gotta get the badge in. I used to frame 40k in wins and losses. And weirdly, that's what Perturabo used to do. He used to frame it in wins and losses. That's all that mattered to him, right? That people didn't look down on him anymore. That people didn't... What other people thought of Perturabo was what was most important to Perturabo. And he'd always tell you, that's not how I feel. That's not true. Right? And he's lying to himself and to you. But he would always say, no. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. The minute somebody tells you, I don't care what anybody thinks of me, that's the biggest sign that says they really care about what everybody thinks of them all the time. Dude, I've said it before, and I was lying, right? Of course you care about what other people think of you. You know? All these people who say, a lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep. I mean, okay. Right. But you do, though, don't you? Because you're not a lion and we're not sheep. So, you do. And later on, the way Perturabo is now, he started to take responsibility for his own mistakes. Can you say to Honshu, yeah, I did all that. I let my passions get the better of me. I didn't fight like an Iron Warrior, and I didn't fight like me. So I lost. He says that too, about the Siege of Terror. I didn't conquer those final redoubt. I left before I could finish the job. I lost. But what does he do after that? What does Perturabo do after that. He does the Iron Cage incident, which is like a middle ground between where he ends up and who he is, right? And in the Iron Cage incident, he very coldly, logically, breaks down the Imperial fists step by step, right? Breaks them down, and then sacrifices their gene seed to rise himself to be a demon Primarch. Because he wants to be a living weapon. Unfeeling, uncaring. But then he realizes, that's not really what I want to do at all. I just want to be better. I think Perturabo is the one, I think, if there's any others, put them in the comment section down below. But I think he's the one non-toxic demon in 40k. As in, he's the one person in 40k who became a Primarch and didn't just get stronger physically. He became stronger as a person. To the point that I think if you stripped away all of his demonic powers, he'd remain Perturabo and a better version of Perturabo. Because he is. Perturabo's now the kind of guy a lot of people would like to go for a pint with. I think that's an amazing story that Games Workshop told with Perturabo. And I completely appreciate it so, so much. Because it means so much to me. As a gamer, as a person. And that's why I wanted to share it as the main body of this video. Of course, we have Guilliman, who is a model citizen of how to deal with adversity, how to have a balanced outlook on things, how to not treat things at face value, you know. And he's somebody else who grows. Like, he's very distrustful in the Horus Heresy. It nearly costs him everything. You know, he makes mistakes. He's not always the one who's getting along with everybody or getting one over on everybody. The reason why he isn't at the Siege of Terror is his own, you know, he says it himself, man. The Ruin Storm or no Ruin Storm, I should have just gone through that thing and lost half my Legion, but at least I would have been there. At least I would have been at Terror on time. The reason why I hold 40k characters to weirdly high standards, people like Erebus, who let me down constantly, time and again, people like your self-inserts like Dron Grammaticus, the reason why I hold them to higher standards than that and why I lambast them whenever they're on screen is because Perturabo exists and his arc exists. Guilliman exists. It'd be so easy to write Guilliman as this one-note dude, you know, and the Ultramarines too. Somebody said on the channel a while ago that the Ultramarines get too much of a fair shake in the you know, in 30k, right? They're not really, and I don't think that's right at all. Now, he said that they're not liked. People in 30k don't like the Ultramarines because they get all they want all the time, and it isn't true. The Ultramarines are very, very, very interesting in 30k, and they have the greatest line in the setting. You know, we float for McCrack. It's the greatest line, and I literally, as a dad. Every dad went, "Wee," when they heard that, right? Because it's a dad joke. Like, Ultramarines are dads. They do dad jokes. That's just what they do, right? And I loved it. I absolutely adored it. You know, there are certain parts of Horus Heresy that are fabulous. They're brilliant. And Guilliman is one of those parts. And because him not making it to Terra is mostly his own fault, and he has to come to terms with that. And I think the best 40k, 30k, whatever you want to call them, the best characters are always the ones who are made to wrestle with difficult things. Because in 40k, like it or not, we do have a troubled fan base. And that's not 40k fans are so toxic or anything like that. No, nothing to do with that at all. We have a troubled fan base in the point that we have a lot of people with Asperger's here. We have a lot of people with autism. We have a lot of people who were marginalised by society, and they found their solace in 40k. Nothing to do with politics, just you know, just where we are. And having characters in 40k who are against adversity, who rise up against it and forge their own way in life and grow. If Perturabo can become a better person, what's your excuse? Do you know what I'm saying? I love you all long time. I'll speak to you very, very soon with some more Hobby Nightmares tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.